is basically an observer. So the conversation is limited to board members. Let's go around and introduce, and then I see a note from Carlene that they have a public comment, which is, I guess we'll do that with announcements. Okay, so as you know, I'm Claire. I live on Horn Lane, and I've been on the board for, I don't remember when, but
it's been a while.
So Joshua, you want to go next?
Sure, Joshua Keelis. I've been on the board for approaching 4 years. Live over Hilliard on Fairway, and yeah.
John?
John Belcher, co-chair, and I've been on the board 2010, I believe.
Oh, okay. Jan?
I'm Jan Spencer, and I've been on the board probably something like 15 of the last 20 years.
Charlesie?
Yes, Charles C. Cartwright, and I was just placed on the board a week ago tonight.
Brenda?
Member of the community and member of the social justice team, just observing. I am not on the board.
Bev?
Beverly Barr, and I'm a longtime resident, and I was on the board at one time, and I'm just observing, not a participant. Thank you.
Okay. Dwight?
Dwight Owens, board secretary. I've been on the board, I think 3 years, maybe 4 years.
Okay. Harry?
Harry Sanger, been a board member since 2020.
All right. Carlene?
I'm Carlene Riley, and I've been in the neighborhood for 42 years and have been on the board and co-chair and kind of run through the whole race.
Pat Riley, and I live on Marion Lane with Carlene for most of that time.
Zainin?
I'm Zaynan Telshow. This is my last meeting as a board member. I live near the Owasso Bridge on Heritage since 2013.
Thank you. Dan?
Dan Isaacson, been a board member for a little over a year. I live on River Road. Yeah, there you
go. Sati?
Hi, I'm Sati Keelis. I've been in the neighborhood, going on 8 years. I think that's all I have today.
Okay, Juliet?
Hi, I'm Juliet Thompson, and I've lived in the neighborhood about 8 years also. And I am sometimes active in the Social Justice Committee.
Dave? Dave Kissinger? Now see my frames of John Morrison.
John Morrison. I live out by North Eugene High, and I grew up out here.
Okay. Sydney. You're muted, Sydney.
It looks like Sydney may not even be connected to audio.
Okay, Mindy.
Hi, I'm Mindy, and I live off Maxwell Road. I've been in the area for 3 years now.
Great. Amy. Amy.
Go, buddy. Go brush your teeth, please.
I don't want my toothbrushes.
Okay.
Sorry, I think it's under Amy, but that's my kid's account. I'm not Amy.
Okay, who are you?
Quentin Baker. We live off of Howard.
Okay. I want to ask everybody who isn't speaking to mute through the meeting. John Q, would you like to introduce yourself and talk about your project tonight?
Yeah, I'm John Q. I actually live in Southeast, but we go to all the neighborhood meetings that we can and we report on them for the Neighborhood News Network.
Okay. Has anybody who hasn't introduced themselves would like to introduce themselves so far? Some people didn't respond when they were called on. Kind of like to know who we're talking to. Okay, I am going to share screen.
Claire?
Yes,
If I may, in order to be considered a voting member of the organization, you have to have attended either a general or an executive board meeting. So if you, in order to make that legitimate or whatever, the way we record it is by you putting your name into the chat. So if you're here and you want to be noted as being here, please put your name in the chat.
yeah, okay. That's helpful, thank you. Okay, Carlene, did you have a comment you want to make?
I do. Thank you very much. Good evening, River Road Board and neighbors. I am astounded by the protest of the children's vaccine clinic at Howard Elementary on November 30th. Every parent has the right to choose healthcare to protect their children, their family, and the community. I was reared with the maxim, live and let live. People may believe anything they like and do what they want in their own household, but they do not have the right to interfere with others' beliefs and actions. Shouting at parents and children who are on the way to be vaccinated against COVID is unacceptable. Some of the protesters at Howard Elementary weren't even from our neighborhood. Because of this protest, 4J School Board has discontinued any vaccination clinics on school district premises. This is a great hindrance to families who want to take advantage of convenient local community clinics. This was not a peaceful protest. It was led by an RRCO board member who went to the county commissioners and invited people to attend our neighborhood, come to our neighborhood. It is unacceptable to me that a member of the RRCO board be allowed to continue in this role. He does not represent community values of providing a safe, healthy environment for raising a family. Angry protests stir discontentment and make life unstable in our community. I want our neighborhood to be well-respected, well-informed, and be known as respectful and caring for others. Thank you.
Okay, and this item is on our agenda tonight. So are there any other announcements? Pat.
I wish to comment on the recent protest at Howard Elementary School during a vaccination clinic sponsored by the 4J School District. In particular, I'm referring to conduct at the clinic by RRCO board member Harry Sanger and his supporters. They would have us believe that any disagreement with their anti-vax rhetoric is a restriction on their freedom of speech. Such is not the case, as their conduct evolved into verbal abuse, physical intimidation, and ultimately coercion of parents who chose to have their children vaccinated. Freedom does not give them license to disrespect others' access to a public event on public property. Harry has not been censored by RRCO. He spoke at a recent general meeting and is recognized to speak at board members of which he is a member. He is free to express his views to anyone who cares to listen.
Okay. David Sanger, I saw you just logged in. I wonder if your relationship to Harry and if you'd like to introduce yourself.
Or is it proper to ask that?
Well, no. David, would you like to introduce yourself?
He's free to answer however he wants, but I felt like that was a query that was maybe
I'm just curious. Okay, not pertinent. Yeah. So, David, are you interested in? Would you please introduce yourself? Okay. Do you have an audio problem? All right, if you have an audio problem, people can, you can make a note in.
My name is Dave Kissinger. I wanted to introduce myself.
Okay, great, Dave.
Yeah, I've lived in the neighborhood since 2012, and I'm interested in observing your meeting.
Okay, thank you. David, are you ready to introduce yourself?
Hi.
Hi.
I just moved into the neighborhood what, like 2 weeks ago.
Mm-hmm. Great, welcome.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay. Okay, so back to announcements. Harry, I see your hand is up.
Thank you, Claire.
Yeah.
So I would like to announce that the RRCO Social Justice Committee appears to be singling me out because I spoke up about an injustice in our community. Item 4 on tonight's agenda is a personal attack that potentially opens RRCO and its board members to legal liability. I moved to remove this personal attack and noted that I am willing to discuss the neighborhood vaccination clinic in general terms. This notice was sent to all board members prior to tonight's meeting. Dwight and Harry voted yes, John voted no, and Charles E., Claire, Dan, Jackie, Jan, and Joshua all failed to register a vote prior to the deadline. And I apologize to Zainin that I did not include him. There was confusion about that status. The actions of the Social Justice Committee beginning last Monday, 12/13, seem to be in violation of the charge under which it was created and violate the spirit of goodwill in our neighborhood and between neighbors. I do view this as a civil rights issue relating to the freedom of speech and freedom of assembly of our neighborhood.
Excuse me, Harry, the announcements aren't for these kind of statements. Can we discuss this at the time of the agenda, on the agenda, item on the agenda?
I'm sorry, but how is this different from Carlene and Pat's announcement?
It's not different, and I didn't really realize that that's what they were going to be talking about. So
can we make this declaration to them?
Pardon me?
You didn't highlight this issue when they made a statement.
It's because I wasn't on top of it. Now that it's happened 3 times, I'm getting the drift.
Okay, so I do have an adjustment to the agenda.
Okay.
To amend the agenda to remove the targeted political act that is item number 4, which appears to be an attempt to limit the civil rights of River Road neighbors. The 20 minutes allotted to this item can be evenly split between the previous item number 3 and the following item number 5, in which we can discuss the previous meeting's discussion around the vaccine clinic in general terms.
Okay, are you done? So
That's
regarding
regarding
the agenda, I want to say
well,
that
there's a motion on the table, Claire.
Oh, I'm sorry. Well, I was
I moved. That was a motion.
Point of order.
Is there a second? Is there a second to the motion?
Point of order.
Yes.
I don't believe that motions can be entered during announcements. Motions have to be entered into the general meeting once that's open, which we have to approve the minutes from the previous session. I'm not suggesting we don't have the motion, but the idea is this has announcements. So can we get through the announcements? Harry, you have your motion. Get a second if there is one, and then proceed.
Thank you for that help, Dan.
This time slot is allocated for agenda adjustments and announcements.
Okay, I have a related adjustment, which is that my understanding is the Social Justice Committee has withdrawn that motion that you're referring to, and that there will be another motion forwarded to the board in its place. So that may or may not address your concern, Harry.
Claire, if I may.
Please.
Harry is correct. The title of this is Agenda Adjustments and Announcements. So it is appropriate for him to move to adjust the agenda. It takes a second and a vote to go into effect.
Okay. So do we have a second?
I second.
Okay. And
call for discussion.
Discussion.
Can we have the motion restated?
Yes, I'd like to hear the motion again.
I move to amend the agenda to remove the targeted political act that is item number 4, which appears to be an attempt to limit the civil rights of River Road neighbors. The 20 minutes allotted to this item be evenly split between the previous item number 3 and the following item number 5, in which we can discuss the previous meeting's discussion around the vaccine clinic in general terms.
Any other discussion? I can't see everybody, so I need, okay. Who's, any discussion?
Just a reminder, at this point, we're meeting as the board and only board members can participate
Right.
unless chair recognizes them for extraordinary reason.
Okay.
I would prefer we stick with the agenda and process number 4 as it sits. And I will vote no to change this agenda.
As I'll repeat my note, which is that the objection that Harry is registering is heard, and the motion that he's referring to has been withdrawn. That agenda item you are misrepresenting what that agenda item is about. And we will have more discussion about a motion at that time.
So you're saying the motion that he's trying to omit is already being omitted, or excuse me, the section.
Withdrawn, it's been withdrawn. Not the section on the agenda, but the motion that he's objecting to is being withdrawn. Daniel, have your hand up? You have your hand up?
Yeah, so I guess I'm confused as how we have a motion to amend a proposal that is no longer there. I mean, if the proposal is no longer there, how can we amend a proposal that's no longer there?
Well, he didn't know that it was withdrawn.
What he knows now, and we have a current motion on the floor. So I'd like a rules committee, if we have a rules committee, or the rule of the chair, or Harry to go back in conference and think about whether or not we can't vote on amending something that doesn't exist. So if he wants to change his motion to discuss something that is on the agenda and change that around, or change the time limits or whatever he wants to do, that's fine. But the motion on the floor is to change something that doesn't exist.
Okay.
So I would ask, if you're trying to say that my motion is invalid because item number 4 doesn't exist, then does that mean we are not discussing item number 4 tonight?
No, item number 4 has been changed. The motion has been withdrawn, and item number 4 is still
point
the
of
same
order,
item.
please. Point of order. I had the floor.
Sorry. Go ahead.
Are we not going to discuss item number 4, or has item number 4 been modified on the agenda without providing the modified agenda to the board prior to the meeting?
John.
As I understand the situation, that there is an agenda item, there is a suggested motion, there is no motion that's been made at this point. Someone else may make a different motion, but as far as I see it, it is an extant item. It has not been withdrawn. It's still the item on the agenda. It's just that the motion that's there is a suggested motion, as all the other motions that are on the agenda are suggested motions. They're only valid if someone makes them and seconds them. And I think Claire is suggesting that there may be a different motion rather than that motion that will be made. That help?
I'm seeing that 2 people have raised their hands, and I don't see who they are. Could you speak up if you?
I see Harry and Joshua.
Okay, Joshua.
I just wanted to say that I was planning on, suggesting an alternative language substitution for the, for the part of that motion, for the middle part of that motion. So, but obviously that has to be, we have to get to number 4, I suppose, before we're going to substitute. I honestly think that we should continue with it. I don't feel like we should cancel the entire item when it feels like an important discussion that we need to have.
Okay. John, is your hand still up?
No,
Harry,
sorry.
your hand is up.
So as written on the agenda, as I asked the board to change prior to the meeting, there is a unfounded accusation naming me by name in in the proposed motion, in the action, and in the background, there are multiple attacks on my person that have had zero evidence presented, but are put forth in a public document. And I would remind this board and for the record that what I saw in Robert's Rules of Order, Article 1372, as far as the right of a deliberative assembly to punish its members, the board has no right to go beyond what is necessary for self-protection and publish the charges against the member. You are exposing yourself to potential, to finish reading what it says, in a case where a member of a society was expelled and an officer of the society published, by its order, a statement of the grave charges upon which he had been guilty, the expelled member recovered damages from the officer in a suit for libel. I'm asking the board to avoid even going down this road. And there is a motion and a second on the table, and I call the question.
Okay.
To call the question is a motion that requires a 2/3 debate.
Well, John, can you advise me on to call the vote? What is the proper motion? Or what
When the chair determines that discussion is complete, we will vote.
I need, first of all, before I even go a minute further into this meeting, I need someone to volunteer to be the timekeeper. No volunteers that I can see?
What exactly is that? I can do that.
Well, the agenda is posted with times on it, and we're already 20 minutes over. So just help us stick to the agenda and the agreed upon times.
Okay, sounds good.
And you do that by flagging, interrupting and flagging that we have 1 minute.
Through chat or verbally?
Verbally, please.
Okay.
Okay. So here's the deal. This conversation should be had in the context of the agenda item, which we will discuss at that time. Okay. So let's vote. All in favor of.
Can I say one last thing?
Yes.
Is the current agenda that's being shared on the screen share the most recent agenda that was shared with the board? Because I don't think that was sent to me.
Yes. And
Okay.
it might not have been sent to you because people didn't realize you were still on the board.
I understand. Thank you.
Yeah, sorry, Zayden, I did remove you from my listing of the board.
Yeah. Okay. So all in favor of Harry's request or motion to delete item number 4 on the agenda?
To be point of order, the motion is to end debate right now. So and it requires a 2/3 majority. So first of all, we need to know how many people are active members to be able to vote and get that total, figure out what 2/3 is, and then that's what has to vote in favor to ending debate.
Okay.
Dan, there was no second to that motion. I'm not even sure it was a motion.
Dwight seconded it.
That was the motion to delete the item. Was no motion to end debate. Sorry.
Who made the motion to end the debate?
Well,
Nobody
I
did.
attempted to call the question, but if everybody's in agreement that we move forward, I don't believe, I recall my motion to call the question.
I'm lost.
It was not seconded, so it died for lack of a second, so we can vote on the original motion.
John, will you take over this vote thing? I'm confused.
Okay. It is my understanding that we are now voting on Harry's motion and Dwight's second to remove item 4 from the agenda and give the 10 minutes therein to item number 3 and number 5. Is that correct, Harry? Thank
So
you.
20 minutes for 4.
It's 20 minutes.
Well,
yeah.
10 goes to 3, 10 goes to 5. That's 20.
Okay, all in favor? We've got Jan and who else? I can't see everybody. So
I see Zanin, Harry, Jan, and Dwight voting yes.
So that's 50%.
But you haven't asked for the nays yet, Claire, or I haven't asked. for
Oh,
them.
okay, okay, so and
Um,
all opposed.
All those opposed.
Joshua, Claire, Dan.
Right. So in the
and-
case of a tie, the motion does not pass.
Okay. And I see hands up from Zainin. Whoever, Amy, I forgot your name. People who aren't on the board aren't part of the conversation right now. If you want to make a
Oh.
public comment, you can put it in the chat.
Okay, sorry.
Okay, that's all right. Are we ready to move on?
Harry has his hand up.
Go ahead, Harry.
So I apologize. I was hoping to be going down this road and that we could just snip this in the bud and get on with business of the neighborhood. But I recognize that there has been mention of modifying the item number 4. I have specific modifications that I would like to request. So I now move to amend the agenda to correct baseless accusations that do not reflect the known circumstances of the Howard Elementary Vaccine Clinic, specifically to delete any personal references to an individual board member in the action and suggested motion fields, and to remove the following lines from the background field that use biased language to paint a false narrative. And I quote, "and allow the protesters access to families, parents, and young children at the school." And I quote, "due to his involvement in recruiting for this demonstration, and particularly due to his statements essentially inviting conflict if law enforcement were called on to do their job, keep the peace, protect school property."
So are you speaking to a motion that we haven't gotten to yet in the agenda?
I am moving to amend the agenda because there are accusations against an individual board member.
Okay, I hear you. Thank you. I'm sorry, I got lost there for a minute. So again, if
I
you
put
want
that in
to
the chat.
amend the motion, when the motion is on the table, that is the time to do that.
I'm amending the agenda as it lists item number 4, the action, the suggested action, and the background. This is an issue with what is published in a public document that is our agenda.
Claire,
Okay,
you
I
need to ask
suggest,
for a second.
okay, second to Harvey's, I'm sorry.
I'm not
Harvey's-
seconding it. I said you need to ask.
I
for it.
know, I'm saying that. I'm asking if there's a second.
Second.
Dwight seconds. Any further conversation? Mike, the conversation I had to contribute is that if the public document needs to be amended, we can do that as a result of our conversation at that agenda item. And that's when we, Dan, I see a raised hand.
Yeah, okay. Question I have for probably John. What is the procedure by which a proposed motion is critiqued to determine its truthfulness, applicability to the to RRCO, or RRCO's willingness to entertain it? Can any member who has been a part of RRCO propose any motion? In other words, can I propose a motion that we as RRCO chastise Wisconsin for not making enough cheese? And I don't mean to cast light as I'm talking about an actual legitimacy. Can I propose literally anything, and you're going to put it in the agenda as a potential item should I come to the table and propose that?
Harry, I don't see any limit to motions that can be made by a member of the board in the meeting.
Okay, so the next question I would have then is, if any person can send you, John, or whomever, that I am thinking about making this proposal, there is no check to determine whether its veracity is truthful or not. There's no check and balance by a subcommittee, a tiger committee within the executive committee, or any of RRCO to determine it. How, if Harry would be so kind as to enlighten us, how it is the RCO's responsibility thus to correct it until we actually have the meeting, one. Two, once we have the meeting, if there is no proposal, it's not a public document that we are endorsing. Should we vote on it and approve it, that is a public document that you might have a beef with. But up until then, it appears from what John is stating that anybody can propose anything.
Point of clarification that first of all, anybody on the board can propose it. And second of
Sure.
all, that agenda items have to be pertinent to the neighborhood, not Wisconsin.
Fair
And
point.
third, my understanding of the process is that we vet it through our discussion of the motion during the meeting.
Precisely.
Any other discussion?
So under that, I could put an item on the agenda that says we need to discuss Dan Isaacson and John Belcher's predilection for their young men and the child pornography ring that they're running out of the River Road neighborhood.
Well, I didn't know you were part of QAnon, Harry. Sorry for the snide comment, but I'm having trouble being
Harry, yes.
straight-faced here.
It's a more relevant question than whether Wisconsin makes cheese. Is there a limit or is there not a limit?
Oh, not from what I'm hearing.
This is an important point of order that is not on the agenda, but we should probably take up. So I suggest that we put that in our discussion for future meetings.
And I don't appreciate people in the chat chiming in that I'm using this to stall the meeting. These are very important, very personal accusations that are being made against me. And I have grave concerns over how this is being carried out. And this entire process seems to lack the jurisdiction required to make the accusations that are being made.
Okay. And speaking of chat, I want to remind everybody that the chat is a public document. And even if you're just doing DMs, it gets recorded as a public document.
Claire, Joshua has his hand up.
Joshua?
Am I muted? No. Okay. Yeah, I'm sorry. I was trying to post the, I still feel like I would like to be able to present the information, the rewriting of it. That was the less, I think, controversial one. I feel like in a case like this where people were were intimidated in our neighborhood in the circumstances at the school, I think it's really crucial that we don't allow this process to get hijacked and essentially canceled, and that we are able to have a discussion about it. And I feel like, in order for us to maintain our reputation in the community with the agencies, especially that were involved in this situation, I do feel like we need to make a statement as a board. I think that's important to distance ourselves from the actions, especially since Harry went on the public record to recruit for this thing at the Lane County meeting. It's not like he did this and it wasn't, it was like this happened in the sphere where everybody's doing stuff. So I feel like that's kind of important. And so I would definitely still like to see us get to the.
So John, point of order.
Hey, am I getting
This is clearly debate. on the
Harry,
topic.
you do not have the floor at the moment.
Sir, a point of order allows me to interrupt the speaker and the chair decides.
What is your point of order, Harry?
That Joshua is engaged in discussion of item number 4 and not discussion of the merits of adjusting the language in our agenda to reflect my proposed changes in the motion that's on the table.
Your
I think you
adjustment
made that
proposal
possible by bringing this up now, Harry.
Yeah, that's the whole thing is why.
The other point is that we can't talk about something in the abstract.
John's
without-
decision. I appeal John's decision. The vote ruling by the chair at this point of order is invalid.
So at this point, Harry is saying that my interpretation that Joshua was able to talk about this issue because Harry brought it up is subject to a vote of the board as to whether that is not the case or not. So that is what's in front of us. All those, please put your hands down, board members, so we can record your votes.
Dan, your hand is up.
All those who support.
John, that does require a second and it is debatable.
Okay, fine. Is there any debate on this issue? Harry, how long are you going to stretch out the very first section of this meeting?
I retain my rights to participate in the public process.
Do you have something to say about this motion?
What was that?
I call for the
You
question.
raised a point of order that you did not agree with my decision. Do you
Correct.
wish to speak to that?
Well, as I said, I believe that Joshua is engaged in discussion on item number 4, that he is not discussing the proposed amendment
Harry, you've said that already.
of changing the amendment.
The chair calls on Dwight.
I move that we vote on this and move on.
Thank you.
Well, first we have to vote up or down on Harry's request to remove the rule of the chair. So all those in favor of removing my ruling that Joshua could say what he said, please raise your hand.
Oh,
I see one yes. How many no's? I see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 no's. And I guess one abstention, Dwight?
No, I voted yes.
Okay, 2 to
Yes.
6.
I'm sorry, voting
Your
is-
repeal of the ruling is not approved, Harry.
I'm having a hard time keeping up with the minutes. I think I'm gonna.
I understand.
Recording.
We are recording this, Dwight, so we might have to
That's what I
revert to
said.
that.
I'm gonna have to refer
Okay.
to the recording, and my minutes are going to be very
Okay,
incomplete.
I want to get us back on track here. And so my ruling as the chair is that we move on to the agenda and
We have a
that-
motion on the table, Claire,
And
What is it?
that Harry wants to remove all references to him agenda on item.
Okay, my
and-
ruling is that the
Are we still
document is
discussing
not a
this?
public document.
Point
Claire,
of
you
order.
can't make a ruling. We have to vote.
Okay, go ahead and vote. I'm going away.
Point of order.
What now, Harry?
So Joshua just made a comment. We were still in discussion. May I also put forward a comment for discussion?
Claire
I never
called
even
for
got
the
to
vote.
finish my comment. I got cut off by you, Harry. Do you want me to finish?
Well, yes, then I would like Joshua to finish and then I would like to respond as well.
I move to close debate and vote on the motion.
Seconded.
Who seconded that?
Joshua. All those in favor of voting on the
John,
motion, with-
is this a point of order or point of information? Is this a 2/3?
it's a 2/3 vote, yes,
Thank you.
as per Robert's Rules of Order. All those in favor of closing debate and moving to on the motion, please raise your hands. I count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 out of 8. That is 2/3. All those who vote no, just for the record.
Harry.
1, reminders, if you're not on the board, you can't vote. Zanin, are you abstaining?
Yes, I am. Thank you.
Okay, so it's 6 to 1 to 1. So let's vote on the motion to, would you please restate it, Harry?
It's in the chat. I move to amend the agenda to correct baseless accusations that do not reflect the known circumstances of the Howard Elementary Vaccine Clinic. Specifically to delete any personal references to an individual board member in the action and suggested motion fields, and to remove the following lines from the background field that use biased language to paint a narrative. And allow the protesters access to families, parents, and young children at the school. And due to his involvement in recruiting for this demonstration, and particularly due to his statements essentially inviting conflict, if law enforcement were called on to do their job, keep the peace, protect school property.
End of motion?
End of motion.
Okay, all those in favor of this motion?
Wait
please
a minute,
raise
we have
your-
a second? Is there a second to that?
Yes, it
motion?
was seconded by Dwight about 25 minutes ago.
Okay. All those in favor? Harry, are you in favor of that motion? Okay, 2. Anybody else?
I'm in favor of that.
Zanian? 3. Joshua, okay. Okay, all opposed? 1, 2, 3. I
Are
can't
you
see.
voting,
any-
Claire?
Yes, my hand is up. It's just fuzzy.
Oh,
I
Jan,
don't,
Jan
Jan, are you
abstains.
voting?
Jan
Jan is
abstains.
abstaining.
What,
So
Claire?
3 yes, 4 no, 1 abstention. It
Okay.
fails.
Oh, somebody didn't vote. That's only 8.
That's
Or-
8.
Oh, that's right. Jackie's not here. Okay, never mind.
Okay, are we ready to move on now?
Yeah, I'm getting really distracted by the non-board members communicating in the chat. Can we minimize that, please?
Thank you, yeah.
No, we can ask them to, but I don't think we can stop them.
Well, that's what I'm asking, is that they please minimize that.
Okay.
So
So,
I think we're at approving the consent calendar. Unless there are any further motions as regarding agenda adjustments.
I have a request regarding the minutes from the last meeting.
Well, let's open the agenda item first.
Okay,
So the agenda item is approved consent calendar. There are 2 sets of minutes in the consent calendar and a motion from the Communications Committee that we have portraits and short bios entered into the webpage, and that we get those to the committee by January 15th. Those are the only motions in the consent calendar. So the way the consent calendar works is someone should move to approve the consent calendar. If it's approved, then we move forward. If someone wants to remove something from the consent calendar, they can say so now, and it will be removed before we vote on the consent calendar.
I would like-
Does anyone wish to remove something from the consent calendar?
yes, I would like to remove approving the minutes. I think the general meeting minutes for December 13th excluded a whole lot of the meeting. And so we need to go in and add stuff in. Thank you. Before I would approve them.
Is there a second to Claire's motion?
Yeah, I'll second that.
Okay. All those in favor of removing the general meeting minutes for revision to enhance what was said during that meeting? Everybody in favor of that, please raise your hands. I count 4 in favor. I'll vote 5 in
Who
favor.
was the second on that motion?
Zanin seconded it. So 5 yes. Actually, I don't think we have to vote. It's removing from the consent calendar. Anyhow, there's 5 yes, all those opposed. Seeing none. So that set of minutes is removed from the consent calendar. It still needs to have a motion to approve the consent calendar, second, and vote. Harry, you move to approve it?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Yes.
Dan seconds, Harry moved. All those in favor of approving the consent calendar as amended, please raise your hands.
I'm sorry again, who second?
Jan.
Jan seconded, Dwight.
I'm having audio issues.
We will have a copy of the meeting, Dwight, if you need to go back and check it later.
Okay.
All those in favor again of approving the consent calendar? Anyone opposed? Consent calendar is approved. We're done with item number 2.
Yay.
Okay. Item number 3. Harry, this is your item. we have 10 minutes, and I'm hoping that within that 10 minutes, there's room for discussion.
Yeah, may I ask how you intend to spend the 10 minutes, Harry?
I have a prepared statement. I have not timed it. I believe it should leave plenty of time for debate or discussion as needed.
Okay. Go for it. It's your time.
So I feel cast out of our neighborhood by a committee that was created to ensure fairness in our community. Last week, the Social Justice Committee leveled accusations at an individual board member without any prior attempt at dialogue as a committee. One member reached out in the guise of a friendly email, to which I replied a factual and measured response that was ignored in the accusations put forth by that same member. Her email went, "Hi, Harry, I am curious. Did I see you on Howard Avenue this afternoon near the entryway to the school parking lot? It has been so long since I have seen some people in person that I wasn't sure. Anyhow, whoever it was seemed friendly and said hello. And honestly, I wondered if you were there supporting the anti-vaccine people. And so I'm curious if this member of the Social Justice Committee thought that I was friendly and said hello and wasn't even sure which side I was on, how I was guilty of what I'm being accused of doing. So I have been experiencing stress, tensions in my personal life, and fear of further retribution in regards to my involvement in a constitutionally protected exercise of my civil rights without any specific allegations of illegal or untoward behavior. I do not feel like a member of this community. I feel cast out and have given serious consideration to resigning in light of the negative and dismissive attitude displayed by numerous RRCO board members during recent communications. The Social Justice Committee discussions surrounding the Howard Vaccine Clinic appear to be in violation of RRCO Charter, Article 7, Committees, Section 3, Committee's leadership and duties. Specifically, the committee chairperson shall be responsible for scheduling committee meetings, providing notice of meetings to committee members and the executive board, and establishing agendas. The neighborhood should be provided a copy of all communications surrounding the discussion of the Howard School Vaccination Clinic leading up to and following the email sent by Claire Strawn on November 29, 2021 at 11:51 a.m. with the subject line, School Vaccination Clinic Concerns Update for RRCO Board. The notice in the newsletter sent out December 9, 2021 at 8:38 a.m. was provided the day after the Social Justice Committee meeting on December 8, 2021, and the notice lacks an agenda item identifying the vaccination clinic as a topic of discussion. This lack of transparency surrounding an issue involving a member of our board without any attempts to hear that individual out in a neutral setting has created a tension in our community organization. I joined RRCO because I wanted to help foster a positive environment to raise my children in that was representative of a diversity of beliefs. I have met a number of neighbors that don't feel represented by RRCO, that they don't belong because their politics don't mirror the majority opinion. There are concerns being raised by a minority in our neighborhood. Should we not hear those concerns that aren't represented by the majority opinion? So with all that said, I believe there's been enough division and adversarial communications in regard to these political disagreements. Earlier today, I met a friend of the pedestrian that was killed in a crash at Highway 99 and Prairie Road early Thursday morning last week. While this is not in our neighborhood, it is nearby and a stark reminder of how precious life is and how insignificant petty squabbles can be. River Road can also be a dangerous thoroughfare to cross for pedestrians, and these are the type of important issues that we are not discussing when our neighborhood is distracted by a political disagreement. In the spirit of our neighborhood and the purpose of RRCO, I propose that we work together to tone down the political division creating strife in this meeting. So with that said, I do not propose any further motion or action on this item, and I open the floor to discussion.
Okay, is there any discussion? And just for your information, I'm not seeing any of the visual of any of you, so I need help with calling on people. Zainin, you have your hand up.
Yeah, I just, I wasn't there on the day of this Howard Elementary Vaccine Clinic and the protest as well. And I also wasn't privy to all the conversations that took place leading up to this event. I have heard, however, that there were police officers present at this event even very, very early on in the day, even before most of the other people arrived. And I'm just curious why any sort of misconduct by Harry at that point would not have been addressed by the police officers who were right there in a direct observance type situation of Harry. And I'm a little bit concerned that the Social Justice Committee can level accusations at an RRCO board member. And like in our last meeting, we arbitrarily determined that Harry got exactly the same amount of time to defend himself that it took for the accusations to be made. And that's an example of an arbitrary decision made by a board with differing opinions from Harry's political opinions. And we need to make sure that what we're doing follows process and adheres to our civil rights. And as far as I know, like I said, I wasn't there. Harry hasn't done anything wrong other than express a viewpoint that differs from your own. And if you really think that that's punishable, then we should proceed talking about this. Otherwise, I really question what we're doing here. And I have to say, just like Harry said, there are a lot of other important issues that could have our attention right now, but instead we're dealing with this.
Okay, I would like to respond to some of the points in Harry's thing. And Harry, I see you have your hand up. I would rather not be a back and forth between you and other people. If you can hold for a few minutes and listen. You spoke to this issue of tension in the community. And I have to say that I have reached out to you multiple times in the past few months to have dialogue and discussion with you. And every time I do, you dismiss anything that's said as propaganda. I don't experience your civic participation as being dialogic, as being open to discussion, and in fact, as being pretty much hostile. So if you're concerned about why people haven't talked to you, it's because, for me, speaking for myself only and not for any committee or anything else, I don't see any opening for discussion. I think that's regrettable. I hope that we can change that.
Point of order, John.
What's your
Again,
point
a
of order,
personal
Harry?
affront. Claire is making
Pardon me?
accusations about me. Claire, this.
I'm trying to
sorry, but I am
understand.
allowed to interrupt a speaker for
I was trying to hear you. Would you please continue?
Claire is making accusations that are, again, based in opinion and not fact. She has reached out to me. She sent me an email that was one link, to which I responded, not that it was propaganda, but I gave her a science fact-based response of my understanding of the issue. And then she never responded, and I don't recall other communication. And so I am open to dialogue, and this idea that I'm the one shutting it down is not reflective of reality. It's a political difference, and it is difficult to talk politics when they're so charged in the present environment. RRCO is supposed to present the forum.
Harry, could you finish your point of order?
RRCO is supposed to present the forum for which those are discussed.
Harry, my ruling is that Claire has the right to say what she says, and when she's done, you have the right to respond. I don't think it's appropriate for you to interrupt with this point of order. You can appeal that to the membership should you wish.
No, that's okay. Thank you, John.
And point of fact, that was only one exchange. There were multiple exchanges prior to that one, if you want to look in your history, Harry.
So Claire, I suggest we probably have to time people's responses to this, and perhaps that should be 2 minutes. Is that acceptable to the board? Without objection, all discussion for the rest of this 1 minute and 48 seconds will be limited to 2 minutes. So I guess who wants to speak at this point? Dan had his hand up, I believe, first.
Okay, so first, this is my problem, Harry. You say that you're open to dialogue, but the minute that someone comes in and has an opinion, admittedly, that's different than yours, you jump in and shut down the dialogue with her. If you're open to dialogue and you're open to different opinions, that means you have to listen with your ears and not your mouth, and listen to what the other person wants to say, whether you agree with it or not, whether you think that it's completely off base. That's her right to say so. My issue with this entire process is not the actual act of vaccines, not the act of talking about being anti-vax or pro-vax, or whether we should have an assembly or not, whether you were there or not. It's the fact that when we're serving as a board member, you're acting as a de facto representative of the board. So I testify before city council, I testify in a variety of other functions. The first thing that comes out of my mouth when I say I'm an RRCO board member, I'm a planning commissioner, whatever it is, I am not speaking on their behalf. I'm speaking only for myself. You didn't do that. when you went to the county commissioners. You made it appear, not saying that that was your intention, because I don't believe it was, but to the outside public, it could get the impression that the RRCO as a board has decided that your views that you were
So point of order, John.
What is your succinct point, Harry?
That Dan's accusation, I believe, is factually incorrect. That if I
Thank you, we heard your point.
that if I
Carry on,
stated I
Danny.
was a member of the RRCO board, that I also stated I was on
Harry,
behalf of my own individual opinions.
You said neither, and that was his point.
If I said
Again.
neither, then I'm not representing the board.
the time for this item has expired. If anyone wants to extend the discussion, now would be the time to make it.
So, John, again, this is a perfect example of being railroaded.
Harry, the
We're supposed
time
to be
for this
discussing the
item
social
has
justice
expired.
committee and their reactions, and Claire makes it an attack on me and how I respond to email. And then when I point out that that's not relevant to this discussion, then Dan attacks me for not being open to hearing Claire. And then he makes another false accusation against me.
Harry, your
Harry, we're
point is
talking
made.
about having a
Of
conversation.
unneighborly behavior. This is not what ARCO represents.
Good,
You're
and you
ashamed to
can
be a
model
part
what
of
we
it.
want to
Claire,
represent.
please, you do not have the floor either.
Okay, sorry.
Um,
John, I want to
Unless
remind you,
someone moves to extend this item, we are moving to the next one.
I've moved to extend the item for the purpose of hearing your thoughts here, John, on possible resolution about the politics of it all.
If you want to extend the discussion, Claire, you have to say for a specific amount of time.
Okay, for no more than 5 minutes.
And you also are assuming I'm wishing to speak, which may or may not be the case.
Well,
Is there a
you told me-
second to Claire's motion to extend this discussion for 5 minutes?
I'll second it.
Okay, all those in favor of extending the time for me specifically to speak, please raise your hand. And those of you that have your hands up, first of all, if you're not a board member, your vote doesn't count, and sorry about that. Okay, so I see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 yeses. How many noes? 1. And I guess you and I are abstaining, Dwight?
No, I voted yes.
Okay,
I'm sorry. Again, I'm trying to type and vote and all that other stuff.
I understand. So that means 6 yes, 7 yes, I guess, and 1 abstention. Okay, so I have 5 minutes to talk about, what am I talking about, Claire?
You had thoughts about another motion that should be submitted to the board and ask for it to be in this section.
I choose not to make that motion at this time because I think it'll be divisive, Claire.
Okay, point of personal order, please.
Yes, Dan.
I didn't get my full 2 minutes. Harry interrupted me and I'd like 20 seconds to wrap up.
Please do.
Harry, I'm not attacking you. I consider you a friend. I consider anybody who has a different opinion of mine to be a friend. My only issue was the language, because I had several folks who asked me, is that what RRCO feels? Because they got the impression. That's it. If it was different, I would probably be on your side on going forward. I think as a next step, I think it would be wise for us as a board to come out with specific language that we agree upon to say in front of any elected body before we testify, so that we know and the community knows that you're speaking on your own behalf and not others. That's it.
Thank you. Can we now move on to item number 4? Need no objection. Claire, item number 4.
So item number 4, as I mentioned before, the Social Justice Committee did not submit a motion. They withdrew their motion for this discussion in the general meeting because of the very points that Harry has said about identifying him without proof. And so we have an alternate statement that I'm going to ask Joshua we, meaning some members of the board, not the Social Justice Committee. I'm going to ask Joshua to present. Joshua?
Okay, yep. I just wanted to paste it into the chat.
Oh, okay.
I went ahead and included a friendly amendment, the idea that Charles C. had included. So, yeah, I read the text that was originally submitted by the Social Justice Committee, and you know, in light of some of Harry's concerns, it did really seem like it gave the impression that we were accusing him of personally, you know, intimidating people or whatever. And so I rewrote the motion, and I'd like to propose a substitution for the text that I just pasted into the chat window, which I feel much more clearly clarifies that in general, we are objecting to the conduct that happened at the protest, and we are feeling the need to clarify to the city, the county, and 4J, because they were all pretty integrally involved in this issue in one way or another. Just to clarify that you know, his opinions are his own, and that we you know, that just to kind of basically clarify our public opinion as a board. So anyway,
would you please read it?
Sure. The RRCO Executive Board makes a public statement opposing the behaviors exhibited by the protesters who intimidated people attempting to access public health at the Howard Elementary Vaccination Clinic on November 30th. We especially condemn those who verbally assaulted parents in the presence of their children, and we are saddened to learn that those behaviors have moved the 4J School Board to cancel all future school site clinics, limiting parents and children neighborhood access to important health care. The behaviors exhibited by the protesters do not represent RRCO's values of building community safety and trust. We feel the need to make this statement not just because it happened in our neighborhood, but because one of our board members, Harry Sanger, was publicly involved in recruiting for and participating in the protest. This statement and the background description below shall be sent to 4J School Board, Eugene City Council, and Lane County Board of Commissioners in order to clarify our official position.
So that's a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, Claire, it's open to discussion.
Any discussion?
Zainin has his hand up.
Go ahead.
Yeah, it's pretty similar to what Harry mentioned earlier about Robert's Rules of Orders limiting us to take action with our own board members, with the most severe action being expulsion from the organization, and making a public statement with the use of one of our board members' names seems to be really overstretching our reach. And we've said it multiple times in the last few minutes that this statement needs to be made to clarify our position. If we're trying to clarify our position, then there's no need to mention anyone specifically by name. And as Harry pointed out, I do fear that this could have some legal ramifications for the board and the board members who participate in this. We should absolutely leave everyone's name out of this and say how we feel as a board without slandering or libeling anyone, or whichever word would be most appropriate.
Thank you, Zainin. Dan?
Can someone please put up the actual text of this? Is that
on the chat?
It's in the chat. I would, if I reserve my right to come back to, after I read this real quick.
Okay.
Where my hand is.
Yeah, I see it. John?
First of all, Harry, your point about Robert's Rules of Order, I'm sorry, Robert Rules of Order are not a legal document. They are simply the way that groups make their decisions and act. There's nothing in Oregon statute that says Robert's Rules of Order are the law of the land. That aside, and also in regards to that, no one is proposing to remove you from the board. which is what they're specifically speaking to. Unimportant. I would suggest, Zainin, if you don't like that particular sentence, you might move to remove it from this particular motion. That would be an appropriate way to deal with it. But that's your choice.
Well, many other people are in line in front of me, so let's address them first, please.
Okay.
Dan, are you ready to speak again?
Yes. So I'm reading this statement. We feel the need to make this statement not because it happened in our neighborhood, but because one of our board members, Harry Singer, was publicly involved in recruiting for and participating in the protest. The truth to libel is the defense to libel is the truth. Harry was both there and recruited for it in a public meeting. That is what happened. It's not a recrimination of Harry. It's not saying he's a bad person. It's not saying that we don't appreciate his ability to do these things. It simply says that he was present and he recruited for it. And it's also saying in more clear language that if anybody had a feeling as though RRCO as an organization was supportive of his views or activities, it is not. We have not taken a view. It doesn't mean we're not supportive of it. We haven't taken a view. If he wants to put up a motion and propose we endorse his views and his activities, he's free to do so and let the votes fall where they may. But as of right now, and as of when he was out there and when he was in front of the county commissioners, there was no vote, there was no support, and he was both participating and recruiting for it. Truth to defense.
Harry?
Harry, you're muted.
I have a number of responses. One to John's point, I never intended to claim that Robert's Rules of Order was the legal violation. The point clarified in that quoted item from Robert's Rules of Order related to an example of where that did become a legal question. So it was representative of the potential, which I've said this whole time, I've said potential for legal action. I do believe that leaving my name in here, it's guilt by association. You're denouncing a number of behaviors and then you name my name. The sentence that you name my name in may be factually correct, but the context of the entirety of the statement paints me as an individual in a negative light and is not a neighborly thing to do. And as Zainin mentioned, there is this item was brought up as a possible discipline for me by name in the agenda. This statement as rewritten, I still regard as potential discipline, and our charter clearly defines one course of discipline for board members, and that is expulsion. If the board feels that I misrepresented the organization and the intent of the organization, then the board should put that to an official expulsion proceeding. And if not, then we should stick to this communication in general terms.
Any other comments? Zainin, your hand is up. Do you want to speak again? No, you're taking it down. Okay.
Yeah, I will agree with Harry that by including his name in this statement, he is associated with the statements made at the beginning of this statement, like the protesters who intimidated people attempting to access public health. And then mentioning Harry's name at the bottom does imply that he was participating in those activities, and I don't approve of that. So I would like to make a motion that we remove all the specific names from this statement.
Okay, anybody want to second that motion?
Dan, are you seconding?
I second.
Dwight seconds. Okay, any more discussion? I think what we did, in the discussions I was involved in about this motion, whether or not to include Harry's name, the argument for including Harry's name was not to target him for expulsion, but to make a documented record that the behavior was not approved of. And so the intention is not for punitive expulsionary purposes, but is to document what we perceived happening, and period.
Harry has his hand up.
Okay, and I see, Jan, do you have your hand up?
I would
Okay.
reiterate that there is one method of discipline noted in our River Road Community Organization Charter. And publicly languishing board members using the power of the River Road Community Organization and the relationship that exists between other government entities such as 4J School Board, Eugene City Council, and the Lane County Board of Commissioners, it seems to be an abuse of political will that is coming of our neighborhood's charter.
Okay, so any more discussion on the motion that's on the floor?
Dan had his hand up, you may recall.
Dan.
Yeah, I wasn't there.
Oh, Jan.
I wasn't there, and I've been following all this, and I'm really think the sooner we can come to a solution we can all live with. But certainly by having Harry's name there, it singles him out. And I'm not going to say one way or another if I think that he's guilty or not guilty, but having his name there certainly implies that he was participating in behavior that we don't want to identify ourselves with. I don't know if that's true or not, but I think even aside from that, given what I've heard, I support the idea of taking Harry's name out of that and moving on.
Okay, I hear that we need to revise the motion to take Harry's reference to Harry specifically out. Can someone, Joshua, can you restate the motion with that adjustment?
Wait a minute, we can't take it out unless we vote to take it out, Claire. So we need to vote on Zanen's motion to remove the reference to Harry.
I call for the question.
Okay, let's discuss that. Shall we, all in favor of removing reference to Harry? And once again, I can't see folks, so unless you're raising an electronic hand.
I see 8 votes to remove a sentence that includes Harry's name, or
Okay.
Harry's name
And
specifically.
John, Zanen.
What?
I'm just saying Joshua, Zanen, John, and Jan all vote yes.
Well,
And
8 of us
Claire
voted
and-
yes, so
Okay.
there's no, did anybody vote no? Because I believe everybody voted
No.
yes.
Okay, so there's a unanimous agreement with that motion.
It passes to remove Harry's name from this motion, but the motion still is here.
The motion, okay, so now is the time, I think, that we ask for restatement of the motion with that adjustment.
Okay. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. So what I'm going to do is just go like that. Does that sound, is that what everyone's thinking?
Yeah.
Okay. The RRCO Executive Board makes a public statement opposing the behaviors exhibited by the protesters who intimidated people attempting to access public health at the Howard Elementary Vaccination Clinic on November 30th. We especially condemn those who verbally assaulted parents in the presence of their children, and we are saddened to learn that those behaviors have moved the 4J School Board to cancel all future school site clinics, limiting parents and children neighborhood access to important health care. The behaviors exhibited by the protesters do not represent RRCO's values of building community safety and trust. This statement, oh no, wait, are we still leaving in?
Yep, the
Right,
statement
yeah.
is still in
The
there.
statement and the background description below shall be sent to 4J School Board, Eugene City Council, and Lane County Board of Commissioners in order to clarify our official position.
Is there a second to that revised motion?
Already been seconded.
Okay,
Well, I've got a question. What is the statement and background description below? It looks like we're voting on something that I don't see it there. What does that say? What
It's
is all
in
that?
the background in the action item below, which is the report of the Social Justice Committee. I suppose our previous motion that removes Harry's involvement in the motion also means that the bullet item that includes Harry's statements that clearly were made and available on video from this as well, unless someone sees it differently.
Yeah, I'd like to see what that information is below.
Well,
It's
it's in your agenda, but I will post it now in the chat.
Okay, I'll take a look.
Okay, where are we? Are we voting to move on?
Well, I think the chair, which is you, Claire, needs to clarify whether it's your belief that in voting the previous motion, we also remove that bullet item.
Okay, Harry.
Point of information, is that we remove all bullet items in that list containing my name?
Is there one other than that?
Items.
The other one is that the Social Justice Committee asked that we review, discuss, and have possible discipline actions against you. If you, that is a statement from the Social Justice Committee. If you feel that should be removed, then let's make that discussion as well.
I want to, what's on the floor is the motion from the board regarding disassociation with the action. The preliminary documents regarding the board agenda and background materials are not public documents. We have not voted on them. And what we're doing is substituting this motion for what was in the background documents, and that is a public document.
But Claire, the motion specifically states that this will be included in the letter we send to the public.
Well, that's a problem.
Well, I think that's Harry's concern.
Right.
Sorry for speaking for you, Harry, but I think I'm fairly accurate with that.
Okay. So do we agree that we don't want to include the notes from the Social Justice Committee?
Well, I think there's two options here. We can remove the bullets that specifically mention Harry and send the rest on. Otherwise, there's no context for the letter. Or we leave them in. Or we don't send it at all. Those are the options. You could. Here, let me do it this way. I move that along with the removal of the sentence speaking to Harry in the motion, we also remove the bullet points that speak to Harry in the accompanying document as well. So if there is a second for that, we can vote on it.
Is there a second?
John, sorry, could you say that one more time? You cut out there, at least for me.
Okay, there are two bullet points in the accompanying information that speak specifically to Harry. I am recommending that we remove those two bullet points from the accompanying document that we are sending as part of this letter to the school board, the county commissioners, and the city council. And I believe Zane seconded it.
Yeah.
I just have a comment, which is that I think the statement stands on its own merits and doesn't even need the background information attached to it. But that's
that
not
would be a different motion.
Yeah, we're having discussion. That's my discussion point.
Okay. So I think, Claire, you would call for further discussion or a vote.
Is there any further discussion? Okay, all in favor?
Of specifically removing the two bullet points that refer to Harry in the accompanying discussion.
Okay, I see 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yes. All opposed? I'll abstain. Oh, Dan is opposing.
And I'm abstaining.
And John is abstaining. Okay, so that motion is passed.
So now we go back to the main motion, which is, well, do we send this document as amended as a statement to those three bodies.
Any second?
That's the original motion.
Right, did we get it seconded?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, so any discussion? Harry?
Okay, I'm confused. What was the motion?
The original motion was Joshua's motion that was in the chat. We then moved to exclude the sentence that mentioned Harry's name in the motion. That passed, so it's not there. Then I moved specifically to remove the 2 bullet points from the accompanying dialogue that was to go with the letter. That also passed.
Okay.
So now we have the original motion from Joshua minus any references to Harry.
Okay, I guess I have a vote of 8 yes on that. Apparently, I missed something somewhere along the line.
Which vote?
The revised motion that Joshua suggested passed 8 yay.
No, we have not voted on Joshua's motion.
Okay, that's my error then. Okay.
That was John's motion with Zainan's second to remove the bullet points in the background that also referenced my name.
Yeah, got that. I just didn't know
That's
where
the
we.
8.
And that was a 6-1-1 vote.
Okay.
Good thing we got it recorded.
Good point, Zaina.
Okay, so where are we?
We are voting on Joshua's motion as amended twice.
Okay, so no more
Harry has his
discussion.
hand up.
Well, we did have discussion, right?
Yes, we already had discussion.
Well, but this is, I'm sorry, I thought I was called on for discussion prior to that confusion.
Okay, go for it, Harry. Let's move it along.
Okay, and I will remind everybody to look at the clock. The night is no longer young. The statement as written seems very political to me, and that the River Road Community Organization is taking a political stance on vaccinations. And I can tell you there are a number of people in our neighborhood that disagree with that viewpoint. And I think that continuing to make public political statements will alienate some of our neighbors. And I would highlight that should this pass, there is a term in our charter that provides the minority opinion to also submit verbiage to the city. I'm not looking at it right now. I'm sorry, I got lost in all that.
John?
Point of order, we're almost running out of time. I move we extend the meeting 20 minutes to further the agenda. Otherwise, we run out of time in 5 minutes.
So,
is there a second?
Yeah.
There's a second, although I don't think 20 minutes is going to be enough. I friendly amendment to extend it to 40 because I don't know that sounds like a large number, but I think that's probably what this is going to end up being.
I want to just suggest also relative to this question that we only address items on the current agenda that are time sensitive. So that can
I'm
reduce.
sorry to be pedantic, but that's not part of the motion. I accept Dan's amendment, and the motion is to extend the meeting for 40 minutes, period.
We have discussion.
Can we start with something less than 40 minutes?
Yeah, 10.
Doesn't mean we actually have to use that full 40, but you really want to have 4 votes?
Well, we can always extend it too, but saying 40 is a lot.
I liked Claire's suggested amendment, if we could get to that after we discuss.
After the other. So, Dan, can we go back to my original 20? Okay. So, I'm not sure this is a debatable motion, but if anybody wants to discuss it, go ahead. Why not?
Can we call the question?
So the motion is to extend the meeting for 20 minutes. All those in favor, raise your hand. I think everybody voted yes. Does anyone vote no? Claire votes no. Okay, the passes 7-1, Claire. I will time the 20. Thanks, Amy, though.
So I was referencing at the end of Article 5, it says the executive board shall represent the neighborhood's opinions to city council, planning commission, other appropriate decision makers. Such advisory opinions will specify whether the position is one of the general membership of the executive board, organization members. If there is a minority position on the issue represented by at least 1/3 of those voting, this shall also be presented. So
And
that's
where is that coming from, Harry?
that's Article 5 of the River Road Community Organization Charter.
Okay.
So I would like to advise that should this vote pass with less than a 2/3 +1 majority, that I reserve the right to represent that minority position in accordance with the board as a whole.
I respond. Calling on
You're the
myself.
chair.
Calling on myself. The discussion here is not about the politics of vaccines. The discussion is about the impact of the action on people's rights to access public health. And that is not a political discussion. That's a consequence of behavior. So I reject your thinking, Harry. Joshua.
I would just like to say I definitely don't feel like this is a political statement. We clearly are calling out the behaviors exhibited where we're talking about people intimidating, people who are just trying to bring their kids in for vaccines. And I'm not seeing the political nature of that. So I would like to just say that.
You have Dan and myself, and now Harry's hand up again.
Okay, I'm being distracted by chat. Dan.
Sure. So what I would say is at some point, everything can be made into a political stance. And I mean, we can have people who think the world is flat, and there are plenty of people who do. And there are people who think that a variety of well-established things don't exist. But at some point, there has to be a line as an organization, and public health is one of them for me. And I don't see this as political. I see people trying to make it political and trying to put that onto the bell, but it doesn't mean that the bell's being rung. This isn't a political statement. It means that we are assigning ourselves and attaching ourselves to science, and science being dictated by a variety of institutions that we have all agreed upon up until 18 months ago. And then all of a sudden, 18 months ago, we decided that every doctor, every scientist in the planet is all in some massive conspiracy to harm us. So I'm just not going to go there. I come from the belief that there's a balance between respecting other people's beliefs and also recognizing that at some point you have to just draw a line and say you're free to believe whatever you want, but you're not free to harm other people's ability to have their beliefs or take care of their public health or their children.
I don't know who is next in the queue here.
I believe I am.
Okay.
If that's okay. I agree with what everybody has said, that this totally gets away from anything but behaviors. And frankly, I think the behaviors were reprehensible. I haven't seen children being treated this way since the 60s, when people were yelling at kids who were going to school because they happened to be Black. To me, this is equivalent, and that is reprehensible. And I believe the motion speaks to the behavior and not the political belief. And Harry is correct that if we do pass this motion and there is a 1/3, which would be 3, I guess, of 8 who want a minority report position to be added to the letter, they have that right.
Okay, Jan?
Yeah, I would agree with John. Just very briefly, it doesn't say anything about pro-vax or anti-vax or anything like that. It makes no reference. Maybe somebody could infer that given the situation, but I appreciate what John just said, and I would support that.
Okay.
The only hand I see still up is Harry's.
Thank you. So
now Zaman's is up.
So to speak to what Dan mentioned, First, he brought up flat earthers because a common approach in political discussion is to bring up the worst possible idea that nobody agrees with.
He
and
didn't say flat earthers.
Present that as something the opposing side might believe. There's a well-documented history in this country of majority opinion going in the wrong way. Do you guys all support weapons of mass destruction under Bush? Did you believe that the war in Iraq was justified?
Point of order,
Sorry,
I
this
never
is-
supported
Are we
weapons
all-
of mass destruction.
This is not to the point of the conversation, Harry. We're not having this political debate right
I
here and
object to
today.
that. You listened to everything everyone else had to say. Let Harry speak, please.
Okay, I'm gonna put myself on mute.
Claire, you guys are making my point. This is a political discussion. The fact that we can't have this debate makes it political. The fact that there is a long history of distrust, including minority distrust of public health in this country. To say that all the doctors on the news tell me one thing, that's what I need to believe, is that's un-American. There are a number of doctors. There are 16,000 doctors signed on to a declaration opposed to what's going on right now in regards to COVID. It is not a scientific consensus. It is a tyranny of the majority. And this statement dips into those politics, and this whole discussion dips into those politics. That's why I asked us to please avoid it. I don't believe it benefits the neighborhood. I don't believe it solves the issues like the unhoused and pedestrians getting in accident. Like, there's so many more serious things that are a direct impact that we should be spending this time on and everybody's time here on.
Zayden.
Yeah, a minute ago, John pointed out that what he thought happened, or what happened at Howard was, I'm sorry, John, for paraphrasing, did you say reprehensible? And, you know, Dan has said similar things, sort of condemning Harry's actions. And I want to just say that if you differ from what Harry is saying, that doesn't mean that his ability to say it is in question. Harry's protected under the First Amendment. And like I said earlier, there were cops there the whole time. And if Harry had done anything wrong, they would have been the first to single him out. So why is it our job now? He made it through that day without getting arrested. He made it through that day without being cited. And as he pointed out, the person from the Social Justice Committee who had a problem with him actually asked him which side he was on, indicating to me that his actions were not inappropriate.
I have a point of order here.
Say,
we're not actually accusing Harry we're not singling Harry out anymore. That was removed.
Joshua, let me just finish by saying that this is a freedom of religion issue, and this is a freedom of speech issue.
Who just said that?
I did, Zaynan. This is
Okay.
a freedom of religion issue. Harry had the right to say what he said.
Okay, John, Joshua, somebody talk.
I call for the question. That I move that we close debate and vote.
I second.
Guys, hold on. I need to point out something that's very important here that's getting lost in this discussion.
There's a motion on the floor, Harry. Are you speaking to the motion?
To the motion, yes.
To close debate and vote. Now, please speak to that.
Where is the evidence of the accusations in the motion that there was?
That's not germane to the motion,
That has not
Harry.
been presented to the board.
Harry, that's not germane to the motion. I'm sorry.
It is absolutely germane. That evidence has never been presented to any of us.
Harry, if you don't want to
the
close
only
debate,
motion on the
vote no.
floor is whether or not to stop talking. That's it. The only topic that you can speak about right now is whether we stop talking or not. That's it.
I'm sorry. I thought when John said the motion, he was referencing.
I know, because again, all we
I'm
are
sorry.
doing is listening to react and to reply, because we're not listening to listen. That's what's been going on this entire meeting. That's why no progress is being made. That's why both sides in this issue across the country are having the problems they're having.
Can we get a chairperson to take control of this conversation,
Listen
please?
to both sides.
Point of order.
I'm
Point
going to
of
cut
order.
you off too.
Come on.
The motion is to close debate and vote on the original motion. All those
Okay.
in favor of
Hold
closing
on, John.
debate,
Is there
please
discussion on that
raise your
motion?
hand.
John, is there discussion on that motion? Because I point out that 4 people had their hands up for discussion prior to that motion being on the table.
Okay, I'm gonna call on Joshua, who has his hand up for discussion. Joshua?
I'm sorry, Harry, I just checked. It's not a debatable motion.
Okay, thank you.
Okay,
So the motion is to close debate and vote on the originally twice amended motion. And I would point out we have 11 minutes left. So Claire, call for the vote, please.
okay, all in favor of the amended motion, to pass the amended motion?
No, it's to close debate and vote.
Oh,
on
to
the-
close debate. And what?
And
call it.
vote on the original motion.
Okay, we're closing debate and voting.
That is the motion, yes.
I know. You say it, John. If you want your words, you say it. Don't put me a puppet. Go.
All those in favor of closing debate and voting on the amended original motion, please raise your hands. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, I believe. All those opposed? 2. Okay, debate is closed and we vote on the original motion. So call for that vote, Claire, please.
Okay, the original motion is that we,
As amended.
as
Sorry.
amended, yeah, pass the statement as amended and publish it to the relevant agencies that were listed. Is that good enough?
I believe so.
Okay, all in favor?
Hey,
One,
Dwight,
two,
to be clear,
three,
you're in favor of this motion,
four,
which would not allow a minority opinion to be
5.
referenced.
That's not part of the motion,
Affirmative
Harry.
here.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We have 5 passing the motion.
All those opposed?
Harry Zanin. 2, is somebody abstaining?
Better count it again, Claire.
What?
Ask for the vote again because it determines whether or not we have a minority position.
Okay. Once again, the motion is to pass the statement as amended to remove Harry and send it to the.
Remove reference to Harry. Let's
Remove
not
reference to
confuse
Harry.
things.
Okay, we don't want to remove Harry. We want to remove reference to Harry in the motion and send it to the appropriate agencies that we work with. So all in favor of that, raise your hand. 1, 2, 3, 4.
So point of information, if
5.
3 people do not vote against this, then the minority does not get a chance to represent that there was no evidence presented for the motion you're voting.
That was not in this, that was not in the statement.
And all
Harry.
those opposed, please?
So all those opposed?
What was the final count of yes?
5,
6.
6, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. No, 5.
5? Well, there are
Yeah.
8 of us. How can it be 5 and 2?
It's Dwight is voting no. Is that correct, Dwight?
Yes.
Vote,
Oh,
Dwight voted
okay.
yes.
Okay, 6 yes, 2 no.
Typing and voting and everything else too.
Okay.
That's my.
We appreciate
the-
your patience, Dwight. Thank you.
So the vote is 6-2 to send the motion to the public agencies as amended.
Okay.
So we have 8 minutes left. Should we try to work through the rest of the agenda?
I suggest that we speak specifically to the
The one thing we do have to do is agree to what we're going to do at the next general meeting.
and also I want to point out that there's some deadlines coming out for planning for the election and putting out a newsletter.
So let me quickly go over the remaining items, and then someone can make a suggestion to extend the meeting to get through as many as we just deem necessary. So review last general meeting. Should we oppose Beltline widening? Should we sponsor a Food for Lane County food drive? Recording membership and voting eligibility in a Zoom meeting. An ad hoc committee to discuss River Road apartment designs with developer. Plan the March election and related newsletters. set policy for general meeting announcements, and set agendas for future months. I would suggest removing set policy for general meeting announcements, and the ad hoc committee for River Road Apartments, and I guess recording membership and voting eligibility, but we'll have to deal with that next month. Is that okay with everybody?
Well, I would say let's keep items number 7, 10, and 12.
Okay, I think we just said the same thing, Claire, but okay.
Okay.
But only you two can see what those are, because I don't.
Oh,
think
I'm not
anybody-
sharing the screen. I'm sorry.
anybody
Okay.
else- and nobody else is seeing the agenda.
Well,
It was mailed to you, Jan, but I understand your desire. Are you sharing it, Claire, or shall I?
yeah, if you can, my Zoom is screwed up, so if you can.
Can you see it?
There, yeah, thank you.
So we're proposing to, I guess for one of time, I'm proposing we spend 20 more minutes to discuss number 7, 10, and 12. Is there a second?
I second.
Okay,
Is there-
a motion to extend the meeting for 20 minutes for those items. Jan?
Is there an option or an opportunity to discuss that matter? I would like to say something about agenda item number 6, not as an entire 20 minutes, but as long as I'm saying this, I would invite people for when we do have that as an agenda item to join the RRCO meeting when that does happen, maybe next month, about widening Beltline. It's a really important issue. And I would love to have that issue tonight because we've got more people than usual, but it's an important issue why it would be great for River Road Community Organization to oppose the widening of Beltline.
Jan, I would suggest if that's what you want, you move to amend the motion to add that item and how many more minutes you think we need.
Okay, I move to amend the motion to include agenda item number 6. And to start off with 10 minutes on that instead of 20. And if we need more time to extend that for that particular item.
So now you're proposing a total of 30 minutes?
The 10 minutes for Beltline added on to the 20 minutes previous.
That would be 30 minutes.
Okay.
Is there a second to Jan's motion? And I can't see everybody now. Dwight seconds. Okay, this one I don't believe is debatable. All those in favor of extending, first of all, Jan's motion to include his discussion, all those in favor, and somebody else is going to have to count. Blair,
What?
you have
I
to
can't-
count the votes because
I don't
can't
see
them.
anybody. Sorry, I'm in the same boat.
I
Just
don't
go through the
understand.
board members and we'll say how we vote, please.
I guess
Yeah.
we need the poll.
Okay,
Not hard.
I'm sorry, you guys. My Zoom is not cooperating with me tonight.
So yeah, I'll go down the
I
list
can
that I
see
have.
everybody on the screen and can report if you guys want to do that.
Dwight, can you do that as the secretary?
I can't see everybody either.
I
Okay.
I can tell Dwight.
All right.
Zane and
So how
vote
many do you
cumulatively.
count, Harry, and who are they?
So right now, everybody's hands, I have Jan, Dwight, Zane, and myself.
So that's 4, right?
Joshua as well, that's 5.
Okay. That's a majority. So we now have 30 minutes and we're going to discuss items 6, 7, 10, and 12.
Right,
And
let's
I
do it.
guess we should go through them in the order they are on the agenda, and you have 10 minutes. Jan.
Okay, I would like to do a real quick screen share while I read something. I have an item that I would like for the board and anybody else here to be able to look at as a screen share. So while that's being set up, I will read. Okay. Okay, let me just do this. Okay.
Hey, Jan, while you're setting that up, is this a time sensitive issue or is this a great topic for next general meeting?
It's not immediate. This isn't like life or death, but here's the item right here. You should be able to see this right here is a draft letter that I would like for us to send to the appropriate highway and transportation authorities. But first, let me just read this. This is short. The entire idea of increasing highway capacity is to make traffic easier for the driver. It's a near universal experience that making the driving experience easier will lead to more people using the highway or the road. Further, more drivers lead eventually to more congestion. State of Oregon, City of Eugene, our own neighborhood plan, the climate action plan, all call for reducing the need and use of automobiles and moving towards a more efficient and economic transportation system. Widening Beltline will only make current problems worse, and it interferes with the ideals of a livable neighborhood that I think we practically all agree on. So what I would ask is that people quick take a look at this and share your thoughts. And if we can vote on this, then that would be fine. But I'd like to hear what people's opinions are on this letter and if they would support this letter.
So I think what you need to do, Jan, is make the motion and see if you have a second.
Okay, I make a motion that we discuss this letter and take a vote on this letter.
I think we will discuss it if it's an approved motion. Just say vote on this letter.
I make a motion that
to discuss it.
We will discuss it once it's a seconded motion, Zane, and it doesn't need to be part of the motion.
But what if the draft is not quite ready to send, John?
Well, then we'll have that discussion, Zane.
Yeah,
that why would we preemptively make a motion to send an unfinished draft? Why can't we just discuss it?
Because it starts with a motion and a second, and then we discuss whether to approve the motion. That's how it's done.
Second?
Okay, we have a second. Now we can discuss.
Who's second?
Oh, I thought you did, Dwight.
No, I was asking who seconded it.
I don't know that anyone has.
Can I offer a friendly amendment before a second?
No, it has to be seconded first.
Okay, I second. Can I offer a friendly amendment?
Of course.
Jan, would you accept an amendment that we not vote to approve this tonight, but that we approve sending it to the general meeting for further discussion along with the current draft configurations so that everybody can review what the proposals that are on the table are?
I'm okay with that.
Okay.
So now the motion is to use this motion as to propose this as a discussion item at which board meeting?
January's general meeting.
January's general meeting. Okay, we already have 4 other items that are time sensitive queued up. This one isn't, but that's your motion. Is there a second?
For the friendly amendment, does that require a second?
I'm sorry, at this point, I think we have to go Robert's rules. It's been too weird.
Oh.
Okay, Jan,
Now
seconds.
they matter.
So the motion is to submit this motion to the general public as an item at the next January general meeting. Is there discussion on that? Okay, I will add discussion. I'm going to vote against this because it's not time sensitive. There's no action that's going to take place for a number of years. I do want to have the discussion, but I think there's more important items for January's meeting. So I'm not opposed to having the discussion, Jan. I'm going to vote against discussing it in January. Anybody else have a statement?
I agree.
I think that this is a point of education to the community and that we can offer it up in the newsletter, and I agree that it's not enough time sensitivity.
Other discussion? Okay, all those in favor of the amendment of Harry to make this an item for discussion at the January general meeting?
2, 3.
All those opposed?
1, 2, 3.
Aye.
I see Joshua,
John, Dan,
me.
where are you?
There's 5, John. Josh,
Okay.
Dwight, Claire, Dan.
So Harry's motion fails,
Okay.
but we're still talking about taking it to the general public. And so you would still have 4 minutes and 34 seconds.
Well, I sent out a lot of information to the board about the topic of induced traffic. I think that I don't feel like there's a need to really try to persuade. I think we probably all, it's more this issue, a matter of timing and when to get into a further discussion. Agreed, it's not super time sensitive, but it's something that's important to our community because there's an enormous amount of reflex to just keep building more highways, making them wider and increasing capacity. And this is contrary to the goals, the ideals of state land use, the city of Eugene, the climate action plan, and our own neighborhood, our own draft neighborhood plan is to move away from the types of
if I may,
transportation systems
you
that beltline
Dwight's hand up.
widening. Yeah, okay, the widening belt line is going to make our problems worse.
Thank you,
Dwight.
Jan. Are we ready to move on to the next item?
No, Dwight has his hand up and there's a
I
motion on the.
respectfully disagree, Jan. I think doing nothing is only going to increase the length of time that traffic is backed up on belt lines, sitting and idling. That will, I think, will degrade the air quality much more than more cars moving through at a higher rate of speed. We're not going to get out of our cars anytime soon, and I think we need to plan for that to take place. I know it's ideal to move away from cars, but it just isn't going to happen in our lifetime.
John?
Yeah, I think this is a discussion worth having, but I'm not comfortable with the board taking a position until we know how the membership feels. And I think Jan is proposing we do that, perhaps even through a survey on the newsletter, as I recall correctly, or on our webpage. So I'm comfortable with having the discussion. I'm just not comfortable with the board making this decision. The discussion in the general meeting. And we have 2 minutes left. And there is a motion on the floor.
Yeah, well, there's a motion.
What is the motion? Somebody restate the motion.
The motion is to submit this letter to as a discussion item to the membership.
Okay. Can we call the question?
You can call the question as long as no one challenges, we can vote.
Okay. So all in favor of sending the letter to the membership for further discussion at a later meeting?
I see
Okay.
everybody's hand up, I believe.
Yes, we have unanimous, yeah, to referral.
Okay. Shall we move on to item number 7, which is, shall we sponsor Food for Lane County Food Drive on 2/13? There's been a request from Food for Lane County to once again hold a food drive to raise both food and money for Food for Lane County. We did this last October. I have in the minutes that we collected some 700 pounds of food and $1,500, something like that. I suggest we decide whether we want to do that again. It does require a site, and last year we were able to do it fairly easily because Emerald Park was closed and they allowed it to use their parking lot. That won't be the case now, but we can certainly pursue it. And the other piece is I only want to move forward if there are enough board members or belief that we can get other people to do this and not make it a 2 to 3 person task. So that's my proposal. I guess I want to have discussion before there's a motion, so I'm not going to make a motion. So is there a discussion? Harry, your hand's up.
Yeah, thanks, Sean. I was just going to say that I think this is a great cause. I think that we were very successful in our drive last year. And this does reference the NLC, right? This would be a citywide effort that we're participating.
Assumedly, the request was made to the NLC and at least 2 other neighborhoods that expressed an interest in doing it.
Yeah, I think that's a great way to foster cohesion between the city's neighborhoods and work for a positive change in the city, or positive contribution.
And do you commit to help?
Absolutely.
Okay, so there's 2 of us. Others?
Toss
Dan?
my hat in the ring to help out.
Okay.
So both of you are saying yes and you're willing to help. Okay,
Can you say yes and maybe help
sure you can.
if I'm in town? Okay.
Well, I should check my calendar. I know I'm going to be out of town sometime soon after that, if not. So let me quickly look at that. I apologize.
What was the date? One more time?
I will not be in town. So if this is going to happen, it's going to have to be done without me.
Sorry, John,
So-
what was the date?
The 13th of February, Sunday.
Joshua, you have your hand up? Or are you
Yeah,
voting?
I just wanted to say I love the idea. I think it was great last year, and I will be out of town until just a few days before that. So I can't guarantee that I would be any real big help, but I might be able to do some like on-site, help day of kind of thing.
Okay, given what we know about people's willingness to participate, why don't we vote whether or not to throw our hat in the ring to have this food drive? So put your hands down if they're up, including me. And raise your hand if you support this motion. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. All right, another unanimous decision then. 1 more item ticked off the agenda. Okay, where are we? The next item is plan March election and related newsletter. Claire, and you have 10
Okay.
minutes.
Okay, I sent in an email, kind of a date outline of deadlines to getting out a printed newsletter. The purpose of sending out a printed newsletter is to reach all the neighbors, particularly those who don't get the e-news, and to recruit people to participate in RRCO, to put their hat in the ring to be on the board and to vote. So the suggestion is that the January e-news will invite candidates and also ask for address confirmations, which we can do on an online survey, because we need to kind of register all the members who are going to vote, and as members, we need to register our members. We don't have a good spreadsheet of that. Then on the 15th, that we have to compile the copy to be printed in the newsletter and get it to the printer. So we need a couple people to be on a team to do that copy and to collect that information. The 1st, it would be mailed out to people. The 14th, or Joshua mentioned, is the general meeting in February, but also we could extend that to the board meeting in February to get the requirement of attending a meeting to vote. The 21st, we would ask for candidates to submit their statements. By then, the statements would go out with the March newsletter, and then the general meeting on the 14th is the vote. So Does that sound reasonable to everybody?
I'm putting that timeline in the chat right now.
Oh, okay. Well, I could copy and paste it for the chat. And I did send it as an email. So without objection, we can be that. We can put that into our project management plan. Okay. So I guess I would like to get a couple of people who would be interested in helping pull together the content for this particular newsletter. Which I think, let's see, if we get to the, which we can we can share the proposed content with the board via email, but it does need to get to the printer before our next meeting.
Got a question,
Jan.
Claire.
Yeah.
If you can more fully explain what that task is, I'm willing to help, but I would need to be explained, you know. I'll help.
Okay, so I think we need a brief meeting to figure out what are the articles, what needs to go into the newsletter. And then we need to assign people out to write that. Doesn't necessarily have to be the people who are on the committee. And then we need to receive and copy edit that material, and I can do the layout in case, unless somebody else wants to.
Yeah.
So mostly, okay, thank you, Jan.
Yeah, okay.
Anybody else?
I'll try to help out with that if I can.
Okay, Joshua, thank you.
And Charlie raised her hand as well.
And Charlie. Okay, I better write this down. So
Well,
that's all we need to discuss, unless anybody wants to raise ideas for content.
Well, I think you should probably call for them, but it sounds like you've got what you need, right?
Yep.
Okay, can we go on to the last item, which is the agenda for the next general meeting? That up. I will, let me just put it on the screen, I guess. Hopefully we can do this without objection. Okay. So there are 4 items that I am aware of that have been requested for the next general meeting. Elizabeth Carr of St. Vincent de Paul Irish Place would like up to 20 minutes to talk about the rollout of the Irish Place and what that means, including our involvement in the future. Logan Tellis, who is a transportation planner, asked several months ago to use the January meeting to talk about transportation's projects scheduled for 2022, including the stutter flash that will be installed near Echo Apartments, and potentially get feedback. I don't know if that's number 2. Number 3, I don't know if you guys have been following it on Facebook, but for over a year, there have been neighbors, particularly in the Horn Lane area, that have been bothered by early morning, as in 3 a.m., vibrations that wake them up in the middle of the night that have been traced to Zippo Logs Lamb Beam construction project that is actually building laminated beams to rebuild the dome of the Portland Airport. And what we would do with this item is we would invite people to speak, Zippo Log to come and speak, and see if we can't encourage Zippo not to destroy the privacy or impact the privacy of our neighbors. And then finally, today I got a request from another neighborhood that we requested the city council use staff to determine what parts of the neighborhood are affected by covenants, codicils, and CC&Rs, and I can't, it's too late in the night. I can't think of what they stand for. But at any rate, those are contracts that you have in your neighborhood that supersede city's land use policy. And on many of those recent ones, they say you can't subdivide your lot, you can't have a secondary building, etc. And as the city, their point is if the city council is looking to see how House Bill 2001 is going to work throughout the city, they need to know where the CCNRs prevent it from happening because they can't overturn those. So those are the 4 agenda items that have been proposed. I think they're all timely, and I would suggest that be our agenda for the next general meeting discussion.
Harry has his hand up.
I was going to ask, has ZippoLog been responsive? I remember this was an issue that came up before, and I thought we were told that that was a limited duration project and that the early mornings were going to be reduced at some point in the future. Is that date?
Well, that apparently hasn't happened, Harry, because
Yeah.
people are still complaining.
Okay.
Dan?
I have a.
Sorry, Dan.
motion.
I guess, Harry, you have more to say?
No, there was a first part to that question. Is ZippoLog responsive? Do we actually expect that they're going to have somebody come and speak to us?
We can only ask, Harry.
We've been talking to the city up until now, and the city talks to ZippoLog.
And
But
they
the
have
city-
responded to neighbors. I have some confidence that they would come and talk to us,
Okay, thank you.
but I can't guarantee it.
Dan?
So I'd like to make a motion to add something to the agenda either in January or February, but preferably, hopefully soon. I move that we direct the appropriate committee to draft language clearly stating a separation between personal opinion and any official RRCO position that will be required to be read prior to any public testimony given by any RRCO board member.
Are you, so that's a suggestion to add to the agenda on, on next month?
General meeting agenda or the board agenda?
It would, the idea would be that we direct the appropriate body to come up with language and then the body would vote on it at the next meeting,
Which meeting, Dan?
the general body.
Okay. And so either January or February, and we can make that determination based on how much time these other 4 items take. Is that okay?
Right. Just so there's no, the idea, the spirit behind this, just so that the letter, we can work on the language, is so that in the future, if any one of us gets up and speaks, that we have a statement that we're requiring everyone to say, so that there's no ambiguity as to whether we're speaking on behalf of RRCO or by ourselves.
So that would be any board member before anybody other than our membership, I assume.
Correct.
Okay. So that's an addition to these 4. If there's room in January, we would propose it then. If not, in February. So now we have 4 or 5 items for the agenda. Is there any?
I have a question on the 4th item. First of all, how much time do you think that will take? And second of all, why, what can we delegate that to the CAC?
I don't think so. I mean, it was a request to our neighborhood association that we join in this letter.
Okay, so it's basically a presentation of a letter and people saying, yes, let's sign on to this. Is that it?
Yes.
So it's relatively brief.
Well, you have to
If
explain
anything.
what the issue is, but yes.
Right. Okay.
So I move that these 4 or 5 items be on our January agenda. Is there, I guess without objection, does anyone oppose this? And if not, we'll vote.
Harry. You're muted.
I do oppose that motion. Are we having discussion or is that?
Well, if it was without objection, it would be decided. If you object, then we have to discuss it.
Okay, my concern is just that this is too full, that there's not enough time to really dedicate to all of these items. And I don't have a recommendation for which one be removed, but I think one of the first 3, I don't know that any of those, I don't know. It seems like too much.
I agree.
Okay, then tell me which ones you want.
I would ask, could St. Vinny's to come to us in February?
Okay.
Because they're already in there and I don't see the time sense. Yeah, I want to hear from them, but is that time sensitive?
No.
Are folks okay with that?
Well, is that time sensitive? I mean, they're just opening up right now. It seems like the sooner the better to hear from St. Vinny's. To me, it seems like anyway.
Okay, let's do it this way. Let's vote on each of these, and if they get a majority, they're on the agenda. If they don't, they won't be, okay? I'm trying to get us through the meeting, folks.
I have another question, which is the transportation. How time sensitive is that? I mean,
I
schedule
think,
for,
I think it's fairly time sensitive because they have to plan their projects, and if they need our input, they want to get it as soon as possible. So hopefully for example, the crosswalk that we asked for last summer can get built this summer. I think it is time sensitive, Claire.
Okay.
Is anybody who lives south of Horn Lane willing to postpone the Zippo log discussion?
Well, I'm one of the Zippo log complainants, and I'm willing to postpone it personally, but that's just me.
So again, I suggest what we do is let's continue discussing these, but let's vote them up or down one at a time.
Okay.
Carlene did say in the chat, the St. Vinny's is time sensitive.
Okay, again, because I'm sharing the screen, I can't.
Okay,
count.
nobody's voting anything right now. Nobody has their hands up, nobody's voting.
Okay,
So
well, why don't we start?
Okay, so everybody, who wants to keep the Iris Place conversation on the general meeting agenda? We've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Okay, we're good.
Okay, the second one is the transportation. Go ahead, Claire. I'm sorry.
Who wants to keep the transportation issues on the January agenda? We've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Who's against it? I abstain. And Zainin abstains. 2 abstain. Okay. There's one other person, but I don't know where that is.
Okay, so that one is
Okay.
in.
Dan, a no on that one? Is that...
Abstain.
Okay, Zippo issues. Can we, who wants to keep it on January and who wants to postpone it? Who wants to keep it in January? Raise your hand for yes. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3 yes, 4 yes.
I'll say yes if it's gonna. No.
I'm gonna, who's no? Who votes to postpone it? I guess I'm the only person. I'm the only person affected. I'm the only person voting to postpone it. Okay. So that stays too. City Council.
Well, specifically determine where CCNRs are.
I'm also affected by Zippo, by the way, just to let you know.
Okay, thank you, Joshua. A little solidarity there.
I mean, we're asking our membership to sign on to a letter that's going to City Council. They are required to do what they're going to do with House Bill 2001 by June, so it is somewhat time sensitive.
Could I ask a question, John? Is that like a 10-minute item or an 8-minute item? Or
I think it is. It could be.
It's a pretty short item.
Yeah.
Yeah, we can run it in the newsletter before the meeting also, so people are more aware.
Right.
And do the other items, or could they accommodate the city council allocate staff resources? Do we have enough time for that?
That's what's being asked.
So if you ask me how much time these would take, I'd say St. Vinny's 20, Logan 15, that's 35, Zippo 20, that's 55, City Council 10, that's 65, which still gives us the 15 minutes for our introductions and whatever. So Claire, I think we're on the 4th bullet.
Okay, so all in favor of keeping the city council allocation letter on the agenda? Raise your hand. It looks like Joshua is not voting, or, so I see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 4. And any opposed?
I can't take a vote on this. I have to stay.
Oh, that's
One
true.
abstain, one abstention. Okay. And Joshua, I don't know what you're doing because we can't see you.
We have 6 votes.
Okay, 6 votes. Okay, the final one is a policy letter regarding board member representation.
And the question is not whether we have it, but whether we have it in January.
Right.
Can we just speculate real quick how this conversation should go? It seems like a lot of the verbiage from the charter we agreed on as a board before having it approved by the general membership, and I'm not sure which direction this particular conversation might go. It just seems like
I think if it were approved, it would be a policy of the organization.
so
Jan,
should the draft come from the board and be approved by the membership, or should the draft come from the membership? I guess that's all I'm saying.
What committee would? Sorry, Zane and John, to tag on to what Zanin was saying, Dan's motion was, or suggested motion was to direct the appropriate committee to draft language. Is there an appropriate committee? With the
I think it's the board is the appropriate committee.
well, why don't we let Dan speak to it? Are you asking for an ad hoc committee or an existing committee? I would not suggest the Social Justice Committee.
Fair point. As contentious as the issue was, whether it's the entire board or whatever, a Tiger team, we got into this mess because there's ambiguity. If we can clear that mess up quickly before time makes us forget that this happened again, and now we're back in this mess 6 months from now or a year from now, that would be probably the best.
Okay. I would suggest we have it as a discussion item at our next board meeting, and then if we agree, we send it to the general membership in the February meeting. If you're amenable to that, why don't we just leave it at that unless others want to push it faster?
All in favor of John's suggestion? Okay, we're good. It's going to be on the board meeting.
It is now 9:19, and I believe we are through the agenda as we amended it.
Okay, thank you, everybody. Do we have the chat? Do we have the chat? We have the record.